Hello everyone, this is Mary Ann and welcome to my channel. As you know, I have been using the Pilot High-Tech C Coleto multi-pen for a couple of years now. I started using it in late 2013 when I transferred to the Filofax from the Midori Traveler's Notebook, and I was using fountain pens exclusively in the Midori and going back until 2006. But ever since I transferred to the Filofax system, I felt it was more convenient to use the Pilot High-Tech C Coleto because there was only pen loop on the Filofax that I could use, and it's just much better to carry around just one pen instead of four. And I've already talked before about how I use the High-Tech C Coleto. I use the black one for marking for writing down things that I have to do in my planner, and the green is for marking or underlining or striking out the things that I have already accomplished. Red or orange, whichever is available, is just for marking the tasks that I have moved to a different day, and light blue is for tasks that no longer need to be done or that have been canceled. And so that's really the four things that I need in my pen. The dark blue one is really just for signing forms and filling out forms. I don't really need it, but I just felt that it helps me preserve the ink levels on the other four that I always use in my planner. And this has been working so well for me. Tracy Reinhardt even gave me a pink one to match my pink and black Franklin Covey with a 1.5-inch rings. So I really liked it, but it felt a little bit annoying to have to keep purchasing the refills. The refills are actually not very expensive, but they were not cheap either because they're gel, and they are proprietary to the Coleto. They don't fit in any other multi-pen, and I had to keep buying them. At some point, I even kept buying them in boxes so that I don't have to run to the store every time I run out of the gel ink. But I felt it's so wasteful to keep buying and buying, but at the same time I already had about over 20 different bottles of ink, which I already showed you in a video and I will link down below. Another factor that made me consider going back to fountain pens again in my planning system is this most recent change in my planning system, in which I now do tracking even on my planning page. I write down the tasks that I need to do in black, and for the tasks that need to be moved to another day, I still mark them in red, and I still mark in green the tasks that I've already done for the day. But for tasks that were done but were not planned, I write them down in green on the planning area. I have a video about this which I will link down below, but I tried doing that with a fountain pen instead of the Coleto pen, and I think it looks really nice, and it really feels more comfortable to me to write with a fountain pen anywhere. I've actually never stopped using fountain pens. I've always used it to journal, even though I was already on the Coleto since 2013. So I decided to try out completely letting go of the Coleto and then going back to fountain pens again. And these are the four that I initially chose, and these are from my collection. These are Lammies. Three of them are Safaris, and the fourth one is an All-Star. The white one is filled with Noodler's Jivago. It's a very black ink with a tint of green, and it's a bulletproof ink that doesn't disappear even though you get it wet. The green one is actually a special edition color from Lamy Safari, and it's filled with Diamine Kelly green. That was the green that I filled it with initially. The yellow Safari is filled with Diamine Blaze Orange. It will fulfill the purpose of the orange ink in the Pilot Coleto. And the All Star Pacific is filled with the matching ink. It's called the Lamy Pacific, and it will fulfill the purpose of the aqua ink in my planning system. I did like using these pens in my planner so much, but I was worried that I might accidentally lose the green one, which is a special edition color, and also the blue All Star Pacific is also a special edition color. And although I do have a plain blue safari, which is not special edition, um, I don't have a green safari, which is not a special edition. I have another All Star, which is green, but it's also a special edition. And so if I have the white, the yellow, and the blue safaris, not the Pacific All Star, the green would not match. It would no longer be a Lamy. So I decided I might as well get even cheaper pens that perform well, but which can match each other. The Lamy Safaris themselves, the ordinary colors, the ones that are available all year round, are not very expensive, but there are still cheaper pens that perform really, really well. And I did my research and I have decided on the Pilot Metropolitan. Now they have a retro pop line that has more colors in it, and that's what I wanted to try out. I dropped by Scribe at SM Aura and I picked out three. I wanted the gray, the turquoise, the green, and the orange retro pops so that they can match the ink colors that I need for my planning system. But Scribe was out of the gray, and initially I picked up the silver one from the original Metropolitan line. This is not the retro pop. This is just the matte silver Metropolitan with the dots on them. And I decided I wanted everything to match, so I ended up not using this pen at all. But I'm just showing this to you. The Metropolitans all come with that squeeze converter that I really, really hate, because it does not allow me to push ink into the feed manually, and I need to do that if the pen is a dry writer like the Lamy, which I have also demonstrated in one of my One Book July updates for 2017, and I will link that down below. So this is the silver Metropolitan that I purchased, um, which I ended up not using. And the second one that Scribe had in stock was the turquoise. I am definitely going to be using this color because I will put the Lamy Pacific ink in it. I purchased all of these pens with a fine nib because I want to be able to write very, very small in my planner. You've all seen in my planner pages, you know how small my handwriting can get. I can make my handwriting to be very, very small or very, very big, depending on what the page can hold. And for purposes of my planner, I wanted the lines to be very, very fine. Now this is a Japanese pen, so their fine nibs write even finer than the fine nibs of the European brands. The Pilot Metropolitan does not have an extra fine. They only have a fine and a medium, so I got all of the fines because that will go well with how fine or how small my handwriting has to be on my planner pages. And then the third color that I picked up from Scribe is the orange one, which will contain the diamine blaze orange that I will be using for my planner pages. Again, this has a fine nib and it also comes with this squeeze converter that you have already seen in those other two, in those first two pens. But I also purchased something from Everything Calligraphy. I will link their website down below. Now, their Pilot Metropolitans cost 699 pesos, and in Scribe, the cost of the same pen was 550 pesos. But Everything Calligraphy is an online store that ships directly to you, and shipping is free for items worth 1,000 pesos or more. Scribe is an actual brick and mortar store, and you actually have to go there. They do have an online, I have seen an online store and I've actually tried it out, but I'm not really so sure how efficient they are. But with everything calligraphy, a lot of fountain pen collectors in the Philippines have bought from them, and they're pretty efficient. They did have this bungled, a couple of bungled deliveries by Ninja Van, but it's really not the fault of everything calligraphy. It was the fault of Ninja Van, and when the problem was brought to the attention of everything calligraphy, the owner of the store actually stepped in to resolve matters right away, and the order was delivered as promised. I really, really appreciated that, and they were very proactive about it. They really found a solution for it, and they were very, very kind to me. They understood my frustration. So I really highly recommend Everything Calligraphy, because if there are ever any problems, which hardly ever happens, you're going to be sure that it's going to be taken care of right away. So this is the pen that I purchased from Everything Calligraphy. It is the green Retro Pop from Pilot. It's still a Metropolitan, and it's under their Retro Pop line, the one that I mentioned before. The Retro Pop actually comes in several colors. They come in dark gray, turquoise, orange, and that green that you're seeing on the screen. And it also has a red and a purple. But I didn't buy the red and the purple because I prefer to use the orange ink. So I'm going to be using the orange Retro Pop. And I don't really use purple ink, so I didn't buy the purple Retro Pop. And the green one I purchased, of course, also has a fine tip, fine nib. And now I also purchased the Con 40 to replace the squeeze converter in the green Retro Pop, because I really, really hate the squeeze converter. Um, I have explained it before. This is the Con 40. It used to be that for the Metropolitans, we need to use the Con 50, but that was already phased out. The Con 40 is more or less the same size. It holds a little bit less ink, but it's supposed to perform better in managing the ink that's inside it. Now, as the Pilot is a dry writer, or so I've heard in the fountain pen collectors group that I belong to, I soaked it in water with a few drops of dishwashing liquid. Um, this is just a sample of how I did it. This is what should really be done to all brand new pens, because there might be residual oils from the manufacturing process. So we should always do this to our brand new pens and brand new nibs. But this is also a solution for pens that skip. Sometimes during the course of the life of a pen, some oil gets stuck in there, or some gunk that causes the pen to skip. So soaking it in water with dishwashing liquid is a solution. This is not a solution for dry writing nibs. Nibs write dry because of how they're manufactured, not because of residual oils or gunk in the nib. It's really just how they're made, but I'm trying this out as a solution anyway. Now I've already decided on what inks pretty much to use. I want to use Noodler's Jivago for the black, and for the orange I wanted to use the Diamine Blaze Orange, and for the aqua or the light blue, I wanted to use the Lamy Pacific ink in the Metropolitan pens of the corresponding color. But I wasn't yet sure about what green ink I wanted to use. I did have that Diamine Kelly Green, which is my favorite color, and I tried that, but it was too light and, too girly to be, uh, you know, fit for an adult kind of planner. And I also have another green that I really like, which is Diamine Sherwood Green, but it was very, very dark and I tried it out. It looks almost black, so it did not really look green on the page anymore because if I use a fine nib with it, it looks even darker. I have swatched all of the inks that I have and I will link the video down below, but here is me showing you that I did purchase some sample vials from Everything Calligraphy, which is another reason why I love Everything Calligraphy is because they have sample ink vials in case you don't really know what ink to purchase and you're not really sure if you can trust the swatches online because those can vary. So I purchased a bunch of ink samples. And by the way, the ink samples that I purchased were all green, which I will show you in this video. So they were individually wrapped in bubble wrap. I like how they package everything so that they don't really spill or break at all. Now these vials are made of plastic and the lids are airtight and watertight, and I've used them since about 2012. I don't know. I've showed them before in one of my ink related videos, which I will link down below. I purchased them from Goulet Pens years ago. I have a bunch of them still. Those were I still have so many of them that are unused in storage. But I think that these are the same vials that Everything Calligraphy uses. Now I purchased Diamine Meadow, which is similar to Kelly Green but darker, noticeably darker according to the reviews and the swatches that I've seen online. So because I liked Kelly Green, I wanted to stick with that color family, but a little bit darker so that it won't look too, girly. And then another ink that I purchased, these are all green inks, so I wanted to try out inks that I was not even familiar with, like the Rohrer and Klinger Verdura. In the swatches and reviews, the Verdura showed up like a true green, but when I look at the rivulets that's in the vial, it has a little bit of blue in it, so I wasn't really sure if it's gonna work. I wanted something more of a true green initially. That's what I wanted. And I actually also ordered the Noodler's Heart of Darkness. This is not a green ink. This is a permanent black ink. I wanted to try it out. I wasn't really sure if I wanted to actually use it, so I purchased the sample vial instead. And then the next sample that I purchased was the Diamine Emerald, which I actually like in the vial. How it looks in the vial or in the bottle is not an indication of how it will actually write, but sometimes I like to look at it and imagine the possibilities. Now this next ink is not really a sample vial, it's an actual glass bottle of the J. Herbin in the color Lyre Sauvage. Translated, it means wild ivy. It is a 10 millimeter bottle of ink. And then this last one is an actual full bottle. It's a full-sized bottle of Diatramentis Moss Green. I have a sample vial of this. It was from a Goulet ink drop many, many years ago, and I have swatched it in the video that I will link down below. But I really like that ink, and at first I suspected that this would be the ink that I'm going to end up using for my planning needs, the moss green from Diatramentis. So it was really a search for the right green for my planning needs. I did not want it to be too girly, not like the Diamine Kelly Green. While I do love that ink, I think that it's too girly. And I also didn't like it to be too black because if it will look very close to green, it will be difficult for me to understand what I'm marking it down for. So I wanted to be a happy looking green, bright and adult and pure green. And finally, we are unboxing the last missing pen from the lineup that I plan to use. This order is from Everything Calligraphy, and together with the pen, I also ordered 3 more Con 40s so that they will go into the green, the turquoise, and the orange retro pops that I have purchased earlier. And here is the pen. It's the gray um, retro pop from the Pilot Metropolitan range, and it also has a fine nib. And I'm glad that this was available at Everything Calligraphy, because this is not available at Scribe when I went there to purchase the turquoise and the orange. And now let us go ahead and fill the pens, because I've already soaked the nibs for about an entire weekend. And because the green pen is the first one that arrived, I was able to fill that with the ink in the Con 40 like last week. This turquoise one is filled with a Lamy Pacific, but it still has the squeeze converter, and we are going to exchange that for the Con 40. And then the gray one, it just arrived with the squeeze converter, so we are actually not going to be using the nib, which is not yet soaked, and the squeeze converter, which I hate. Uh, and the orange doesn't have anything in it because the nib for that is in another bag. It has already been soaked. There it is now. And I'm going to put the Con 40 together with those nibs and going to show you how I fill the pen, because it is tricky. There is a style to doing it. I have already prepared these sample vials. That's the Diamine Emerald that I purchased from Everything Calligraphy. I don't have the full bottle of the color, and I have already decided that Diamine Emerald is the ink that I'm going to use for the green pen. And in the future, I'm going to be buying a full bottle of the Diamine, but right now it's out of stock with Everything Calligraphy, so I've added it to my wish list. And now for the orange, I have also prepared this is an old vial. This is actually mine because I have a full bottle of the Blaze Orange, and I decanted it into the sample vial years ago so that all of my inks will be easier to manage. And this is me just cutting out the Con 40 from their original packaging. It's very, very cute. The the post that looks like a screw, it's actually see-through, and there are three steel balls or metal balls inside that agitate the ink. It's supposed to help the ink move around more inside so that air bubbles will not be trapped to produce skipping. So you just push it um, into the nib end section, and because the converter is very, very, very tiny, there is a danger that air bubbles will indeed get trapped in there, unlike with the larger piston filler pens. Air bubbles still get trapped inside, but not as much. And as usual with a screw type converter, you just suck the ink up. But with this particular converter, as you can see, the plunger is all the way up already, but there's that vast space of air. And that's really the problem with very small converters. The smaller the converter, the more air bubbles it creates. So let me try dumping out the ink back into the vial and then redoing that again, because sometimes when you already have residual ink in the feed, sometimes it helps fill in the air bubbles better. And as you can see, um, as soon as I get my finger out of there, um, as you can see, there is a little less air and a little more ink, but it's still not completely full. And you can already write with a pen this way. You can perfectly use the pen this way, but it will run out of ink faster. And I always prefer a full converter. So what I usually do, I also do this to the Lamy, is I carefully tap the nib in that manner so that some of the air bubbles trapped inside the feed could be released, and then I very slowly and very carefully keep pushing up, pushing on the converter so that the ink will be pushed up so that I will have more space to suck in more ink. And that's really how I kept doing it for about 5, 6, 7 minutes. So I decided to speed up the video so you won't have to keep watching me doing the same thing over and over again. I just kept tapping and tapping and pushing up the ink, pushing up the air out of the section. And then when I have attained a little amount of space for the plunger to suck in more ink again, I suck in more ink again, and then I do the tapping again and the pushing out, tapping and pushing out, and then sucking in again of ink over and over again. In the end, what I have achieved is a converter that is not completely full, but almost full. And I didn't want to proceed from that because I was already at that point, I was already a bit tired of the entire thing. So I just left it at that. And as the more I use the pen, the more that the ink gets into the feed and the more the air bubbles get pushed out. And it is achievable, and I was able to achieve it actually with that green pen, and I will show you. I have already pushed out some of the ink because I've already been using the pen. So I've already pushed out some of the ink in order to make the pen write more wetly. So there's how it looks. And now let us try to fill it in with more ink, sucking it up with the screw in the converter very, very carefully. And let me just cap the vial so that it won't, topple over. And as you can see, the converter is completely full. It has no air trapped inside, just teeny tiny air bubbles, which is much, much better than how I ended up with the orange. So it is pretty doable. It can be achieved. We just need a little bit more patience. Now for the nib and the converter that came with a gray, I haven't been able to soak that nib yet because it just arrived. So I'm putting the nib and the converter, it came into the box, and I'm taking out this nib. This nib has already been pre-soaked. It came from the silver Metropolitan that I got from Scribe, but which I decided not to use because it's not from the Retropop line. I'm just a little bit OCD about some of the pens that I use. And I'm just putting in the converter, the Con 40 in the same way. And there is that old vial that I have of Noodler's Jivago. I've already used up about 2 bottles of Jivago over time, and I'm already on my 3rd bottle. So I always have that vial handy in case I need to refill a pen when on the go. So I just did the same thing that I did with the orange pen. I'm not going to show you the entire thing in this video because you already know how that goes. And that is the dark gray pen from the Retropop line from Pilot Metropolitan. And as for the turquoise pen that still has the factory converter in it, the squeeze type one that I actually hate, that nib has already been soaked since last week, but there's still some ink inside the converter, so I'm just waiting for it to be completely used up. But that one last converter that I have, it's for the turquoise pen. So these are the 4 pens that I'm going to be now using for my planner. I have been able to use the Coleto for a good long while, and it has served me well, but I really, really have to get back to who I really am. I am a fountain pen person, not a gel pen person. And I have 3 vials on there. I'm going to be making a 4th one for the Lamy Pacific ink, but my empty vials, my spare ones, are in my parents' house, and I'm going to be getting them this week when I go there. So now we have the gray Retropop with the Jivago, the green with a Diamine Emerald, the orange with a Blaze Orange, and the turquoise that is going to be getting the Con 40 in it, and a vial for the ink is going to be made for it. And with that, I say goodbye to the Pilot High-Tech C Coleto. Thank you. You have served me well. But I am really, really excited to be using all of these 4 different pens in my planning system. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope I have given you some tips, and I hope you catch me again in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.